Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lost in Translation Show. I'm your host, Simone. This week, we have my dear friend Roy Gerela back to continue our football series. Roy is a coaching consultant, recruiting strategist and advisor, and motivational speaker. In 2025, he is organizing football camps for high school and college players that focus on helping young players meet their true athletic and personal potential. Roy is a former Pittsburg Steeler placekicker who played 11 seasons in the NFL. He also played for the Houston Oilers and San Diego Chargers. He is most famous for his time with the Steelers, where he played in 3 Super Bowl championships and won 7 division titles. Roy continued his career as a high school coach and went on to coach for the New Mexico Aggies. Roy's special skill of soccer-style kicking techniques have set him apart from many other kickers, making him one of the top kickers in the NFL during his career. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me with the algorithms. And feel free to ask Roy or I any questions in the comments section below. Welcome, Roy.
Thank you, Simone, for having me.
It's so nice to see you again. I hope you had a nice holiday season.
Well, a great new year, and new year starts now, and
You're ready?
being with you is nice, and to open the season.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's a good start to the season. I know you've got some exciting things coming up in your own activities this coming year with your football camps. And I know that you're working on a book right now. So I'm kind of excited to watch you achieve those goals. I was just wondering a little, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what you're doing before we get into some of the questions I had to ask you?
Sure, I've been pondering about doing a football camp, a specialty camp with kicking, punting, and snapping. Uh, Going to a local high school to. I've got a plan in mind as to how I'm going to do all this. And the theme behind this specialty camp is that kicking or place kicking is like a golf swing. It's the same technique and the same things apply. And as far as the body position and the contact with your foot, contact with the ball with the club face. And uh, and so that's going to be the theme behind the entire thing, because some of these kids do play golf. And now when they do play golf, they can remember the technique of kicking versus hitting the golf ball. It's really the same.
Very interesting. I had never thought of comparing that, but I have had my golf swing looked at by a professional golfer and it didn't look too good. And I actually think that years ago, I was on my way back from that golf school in Florida and I got on the wrong airplane and you were sitting on that airplane and you said to me, Simone, I didn't know you were going to Pittsburgh. And I'm like, I'm not. And I was on the wrong plane. But how random is that, that you and I met each other? We hadn't seen each other in years, and you saw me on the airplane and told me I was on the wrong plane. Of course, this was before 9/11, but your story just reminded me of that. What are the
Well,
chances?
it's
Our
a
life
pleasure
has
meeting you. And
coincided at different intervals.
it's always a pleasure meeting you no matter where you are and talking with you and over lost time. And so here we go again.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty interesting about your football camp. And at the end of the show, I'll give people a little more details about how to reach out to you. Now, we talked a lot about your time with the Steelers last time. So I was just wondering, did you have any interesting stories from your time with the Oilers and the Chargers? I know that there was kind of a lot of disturbance there when you were first with the Oilers, that they brought on a new coach and it kind of created a big, I think they lost the season after that. He fired a lot of the people. So you want to give us a little history on that story? I think some of our viewers will probably remember it.
Sure, I'll give you a rundown with the Oilers first. And Wally Lamb, who was our head coach for 2 years, a great coach, a great man, and I kicked for him and played for him, and it was a joy. And come the following season, right before the season was going to start, This new coach for the Oilers came from the San Francisco 49ers as the assistant coach. And he released, about 80% or more of the players that the Oilers already had. And we had a pretty good team. And me and George Webster, an All-American from Michigan State, played for 3 years already, made All-Pro. And the center, Bobby Maples, All-Pro center, and myself were all cut and with no explanation. So I walked into this new head coach's office and I says, I says, Coach, I says, whoever the kicker is that you're bringing in, I know who it is. It's a left-footed kicker. And I said, he's not that good. And I says, can I just compete against him just one time? And he says, no. He says, I'm bringing him from the San Francisco 49ers on the taxi squad. And I know what he can do, and that's who I want. I said, that's fine. So 2 or 3 days later, the Steelers called, and I joined them in Cleveland for a preseason game. And Coach Snow came up to me and he says, Roy, he says, they're having actually, they're at the stadium. So I joined them at the stadium and he says, Roy, can you at least kick off for us tonight? And I just got there off the airplane. I said, sure. I said, yeah, why? Sure. I'm not going to turn anything down. And so I kicked off for them, kicked well. And then that Monday, the game was on Saturday night. That Monday, we had a kickoff competition with two other kickers that were there. One kicker that was drafted in the 4th round, straight on kicker, and another kicker who was from Wales, the United Kingdom. And so we kicked off, we did everything, and all the players were watching, and I think I came out on top. But when it was all over, Coach Noel was over on the other side of the field talking to the other two kickers, one at a time. And then I figured, well, I said, I'm probably done, and I was going to probably keep one of those two guys. And I was walking to the locker room. He ran over towards me. He said, Roy, he says, I like the way you kicked the last 2 years in Houston. He says, their loss is our gain. He says, you will be my kicker this year. And what hit me most was the fact that he said this year. It's all dependent on 1 year. And I understood that very well. And he said, there's not a coach on my staff, including myself, that knows anything about what you're doing or how to coach you. And I says, in my back of my mind, automatically said, well, that's great. But he says, you're on your own. All I want you to do in practice is get ready for every Sunday. And couldn't ask anything better. And so I kind of blossomed real quick and got the other two kickers and spent 8-9 years with the Steelers and one with San Diego, and got hurt along the way and had to retire.
Now, were the Steelers a good team when you first went with them? What was their ranking? Were they a leading team, or I can't remember exactly. I think in the beginning of the 70s, they weren't that hot, but through the 70s, they became one of the best teams, right?
Yes, this was 69, 70, 71. And that's the year I joined the Steelers, and they were coming off, I think they only won maybe 3 or 4 games that year. And so with Coach Nell there, this was, I think, his 2nd or 3rd year. And then when I came along, we were something like 50% of one loss. We had a pretty good year. And then next year we just blossomed. And I kind of fit in with the local people a lot of mixture of different cultures and and um, and then I got hurt, uh, pulled the groin muscle, and the attachments from the groin muscle to the pubic bone um, were slightly pulled apart. And I went to three different doctors towards the end of my career, and they all said that one more kick could be your last kick. So I knew then that I was finished.
But you had an 11-year career in the NFL. I think you and I were talking a couple of weeks ago. The average player plays about 3.5 years and usually leaves for an injury. So you actually had about three times the amount that most players have the opportunity due to injuries.
Yes, it's the life in the NFL is very short on the average, and I just hung in there and coached myself and corrected myself on video and just hung in there. And I always told myself, just don't cause the team to lose.
Well, it sounds like you had a lot of independence, unlike most players. Even today, I think you had because they didn't know how to coach you. You were obviously able to coach yourself, so that really set you apart from a lot of the players too. I remember I was preparing a interview for Joe Green, and he was very devastated when he got recruited to the Pittsburgh Steelers because they weren't a good team. Is that around the same time you came with the team?
Yes, Joe and I came the same year.
Okay.
In fact, when I was playing at New Mexico State, Joe was at North Texas, and we played them during the college season. And Joe, Joe was a great player, and we had a big tackle that was up against Joe Green, and so there was a big hullabaloo about who was the best one because they both were upper All-American. And our left tackle was a big guy, about 6'4", about 270, could move. And but Joe busted him up, and he didn't last. My our player didn't last. The third quarter, halfway through it, he was finished. He had a broken nose and cut lip and destroyed him, and he had enough and couldn't finish the game. And I occasionally bring that up to Joe, when I was playing with Joe and on the same team. And he remembers, he just has that little grin. And he said, well, he said, I'm just trying to do the best I can.
Yeah, he was a pretty aggressive player. I think he really learned his reputation, but he's mellowed over the years. And like all of us, he's learned his lessons and he's moved on with life. I think he's doing really well. I think you saw him at the Steelers 50-year reunion, didn't you?
I sure did. And I spent some time with him and talked with him and uh, nice man. And always questioned me about one incident that I was involved with a certain player. And so we talked about that for a while and which I won't discuss here.
Inside team stuff. We don't want
Right,
anything
right.
too, unless you want to tell us. No.
Now some things are meant to be kind of quiet.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing you keep in the locker room. What happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. I get
Right,
it.
right,
Yeah.
right.
So that kind of puts us into our segue a little bit. I know last time we were talking a little bit about the new player safety rules. Can you see, even in these various seasons, it looks like less and less players are getting hurt? Do you think it's directly related to some of the rules and the new helmets that we talked about last time?
Yes, last time we talked, we spent some time talking about the construction of the helmets for the players. And when I went back to Pittsburgh for the reunion 50th anniversary of Super Bowl IX, we toured the Steeler facility, and in the locker room, the, our guy told us that they sent a representative of that helmet to every team throughout the NFL.
The new
And
helmets?
yes, they measure the head of every player. So what they do is that they construct a webbing or a device inside the helmet that fits perfectly on the head of that person. The helmets that you just buy off the rack or from the company, like you wear 7 or 7 1/4, it may not fit. And so guys in the past used to use other people's helmets if their helmet, for example, chin strap breaks. The guys that here use my helmet's about the same size. They wear it and then they're liable. I mean, they can get a concussion very easily. So now they make it fitting and put it inside the helmet, and only you can use that helmet. And so now that has cut back on the concussions, especially on the kickoff and punt returns and just playing normally, tackling. It's you don't hear too much of concussions anymore. You don't hear announcers today saying, well, he's not playing because of a concussion. In the past, yeah, there was quite a few. So
And there's a lot of long-term issues related to dementia and those kind of things too. So in the beginning, it's just the concussion, but it can lead to later health issues, correct?
yes, like CTE, that's the irritation of the brain, and of course, malfunction of the brain, causes you to do crazy stuff, I guess, and costing lives.
And depression, I think, is a major side effect also of concussions. I think we had Leo Sayer. I remember I lived in Southern California at the time, and he was a football player that jumped off the bridge there in Long Beach. He'd been
Right.
suffering from severe depression, and they related it to his possible football injuries and untreated depression. I don't think people were as aware with MRIs and all these things that we've
Right.
have even in the last 10 or 15 years. Things have really improved for diagnosing people's issues too.
Right. Junior Seau from the San Diego Chargers, same
Yeah.
way.
Hmm.
Mike Webster from the Steelers, he was center, and over the years, I can remember when football was over, he had good job opportunities coaching in the NFL and being a sideline reporter, and he quit both of those jobs, and gave his wife the house in Wisconsin where they lived, and probably most of his money, and started living with his son, and became a hermit, and then went on his own, and players tried to help him, and he didn't want any help, and pretty soon, he's living out in his car in these cheap motels, and you know over time the CTE got to him and destroyed him.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. I'm so glad that that our younger players are more aware of these things too. Do you feel as a coach a certain responsibility? Are you teaching this preventative kind of things to the people in your coaching classes? Is
Yes,
there special ways people can coach to keep this thing in mind? Is I guess what I'm asking.
yes, it's the NFL worked hard on their program, um, on how to tackle, and without hitting head on with all the time with different people. During the past coaches have taught tackling by using your forehead and tackling with forehead and kind of embracing your neck,
That
and
Raiders,
yeah, and
Raiders coaching style.
yeah, it's a way of really getting a good hit on somebody. Um, but at the same time, it's a head-on collision, and sometimes people duck their head a little bit, and you can get a broken neck,
Yeah.
which has happened, and also concussion. So they taught you now how to tackle with your shoulder, and the most scary tackle in football is you're a defensive back or a defensive player. We're going to make this tackle, and the guy coming straight on to you. Are you gonna tackle this guy coming so fast? And now it's a fearful hit because you tackle with your forehead, you're gonna feel it. And so now they say the ball carrier's coming at you, put your left ear to their left ear. Okay. And that way it takes the head out of the hip. And then wrap your left arm around the shoulder or the neck of the player. And that was created and that was emphasized. And they had programs with a whole nation. And because I was part of that group in New Mexico where I went to Little League games and practices and the invite of the coaches to show us how to tackle without tackling with your forehead. And you had to demonstrate it, and then you had kids try it, and it worked very, very well. That has eliminated a lot of concussions.
And it's
And
awesome to hear that they're actually implementing this at the young kids level because children should have fun playing sports. They shouldn't suffer a lifelong injury.
right, and as they go up the ladder to play in high school and college, they take that with them.
Right.
So now that, yeah, like I say, now in the NFL and even in college, you don't really see too many concussions,
That's great. That's been a big
especially
improvement.
in the NFL. So that's a big improvement. Plus, along now with the construction of measuring the player's head to fit the inside portion of that helmet.
Yeah, you had a 6'7", 270 guy pound, wearing the same helmet as the quarterback. It doesn't make
Yes.
sense, right? It, it,
No,
it
it
just
doesn't make sense
didn't.
at all. It doesn't fit.
And you've got people of different ethnic and racial groups that have different body structures and stuff. So that doesn't make sense either.
Right. And if you wear one of those helmets that's it's not fitted properly, it's like getting fitted for golf clubs. Everything's got to fit just right. And that's what the NFL has done with the players' helmets today. And it's really working out well, I think.
Well, I think last time we talked before Christmas, you'd just gotten back from picking up your football jerseys. I know they retired some of your jerseys. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
My football jerseys, yeah, I've created a trophy room for myself in my house and had a 3-car garage and converted that smaller space, 200 square feet, where I have the Steeler jersey all framed and have the All-Pro jersey all framed. And also in 1969, now in college, I was selected to play in the 1969 college All-Star team against Joe Namath and New York Jets back at that time when the Chicago Tribune put on that game with the college All-Stars versus the world champions, Super Bowl champions, which just happened to be the New York Jets. And I mean, I was selected. I went to my AD and got this letter from Otto Graham, who was the coach of this team, All-Star team, and just to make sure that it was me that he was selecting. Or did they make a mistake? Because I only started kicking really just last part of my junior year and my senior year. But my senior year in college, I started as a defensive back. So I just kicked on the side
And
before
now were
practice,
you with the
after practice.
Aggies then? Were you playing
Yes,
with the
in
Aggies?
college, yeah.
Mhm.
And so I just worked on it before and after practice, and my senior year finally had some opportunities to kick a few field goals and extra points, kickoffs, so putting everything out of the end zone, and That's the first time anybody in the area where soccer style was just beginning to hit the scene.
I
And
remember you told me once there was a 1950s guy who was a soccer style kicker. Was he a college player or a pro player?
he was both the college and pro player. It was the Gogolak brothers, Charlie and Pete Gogolak, both from Hungary. Came to the United States and one went to Cornell. I think they both went to Cornell and I forget the other Ivy League school, but they both walked on and Charlie kicked for the New York Giants and Pete I think kicked for the Washington Redskins at that time, and both did well. I can remember sitting on the couch on the student union building watching the game, the Washington Redskins versus the New York Giants, and they were kicking against, they were kickers for their teams, and and I saw that, and I said, you know what, I can do that. I played soccer when I was a kid in Canada, and I played soccer in college with the foreign students players, and I said, why can't I do it? So I went out there the next day and proved to myself that I could. And so I just stuck with it. And my defense back coach, who was Freddie Glick, who was coming off a neck injury with the Houston Oilers. And he said,
You
Roy, he
known
said,
him when you played? Did you play with him previously?
no, he was
Not yet.
my he was my college defensive back coach.
Oh, I see.
And but he saw me kicking on my own, and he walked up to me. He said, "Roy," he says, "You got a great leg." He says, you can right now." He said, "You can play in the NFL." I said, "No, no, son, I'm just starting to learn." He says, "I want you out here before practice and after practice. I'll be with you." And I says, "In your senior year," he says, "I'll be here." Which is next year. He says, "I'll get a scout from the Houston Oilers to take a look at you." And so I was living with my sister and brother-in-law since the ninth grade, and they were stationed over in Hawaii, and he worked for the IBM company, and so they're being transferred back to New Jersey, and they asked me to come along with them because they had a trip all scheduled all the way through Asia and Europe and back to the United States, and I turned that down because I stayed here in Las Cruces just to work on my kicking. And every day, always kicked a little bit just to figure out how to get that ball off the ground and get some good height on the ball plus distance. I didn't know how to do it, but with time, I finally figured it out. And because I was afraid being selected as a college all-star kicker and only get maybe a few times during my senior year. And but I made it work, and I was scared, and because people may have thought maybe I'm a fraud because nobody knew of me, and here I am on the college all-star team. How did I get here? And not only that, but how good are you? You know, and but I worked hard on it, and I spent every every day trying to figure it out. And
Well, and it
I
must have been amazing to become a coach because it sounds like the coaches in your life really guided you and helped you. I know your father died when you were younger, and you really had someone who was standing there in front of you. So you know how much a good coach and good coaching techniques and good discipline can really help a player achieve his goals.
yeah, I did. I had a lot of help from different coaches in high school and college, and um, many stories to tell you there. But I hadn't when I was growing up. I grew up poor, so I had nothing to lose. And so I took every opportunity I had. When I went to New Mexico State, got that scholarship, my football coach says, Roy, he says, maybe you should go to a smaller school. He says, New Mexico State is kind of a bigger school. He says, and, you know, I don't know if you can compete on that level. I says, I told him, I said, you know what? I says, I got a free education, semester to semester, like everybody else. And I said, this is the best one I have in the warm climate where I can play baseball as well.
Did you play
And
baseball in college too?
I did, yes,
And what are they the Aggies and the baseball team too?
yes. Uh,
And how was their team? Were they a good team?
we were average. We were average, but I just played it just to. I love baseball. I just played it just to keep myself occupied and attached to the sport. And but with time, if I would have stayed behind to work on the kicking after my senior year or after my junior year, I probably would not have had a chance to move on into the NFL or be even considered for the college all-star team.
Now, there's a lot of differences. You and I have talked over time about the differences in what players have going on today and the difference between players in your generation. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Regarding,
Well, just the team environment, the promotions. I think being a football player in your generation, the salaries weren't as big. The just kind of there's been an evolution in sports. So I was just wondering if you had any opinions or feedback on that.
yes, there was a fellow by the name of I think Tom Fox that wrote an article on why the kickers today are so much better than the kickers in years ago in my era. And you know, he reached out and he said that well, back in 1969, there was only one dome stadium, that was the Houston National Dome. He says so stadiums uh, that the NFL play their games on were really played on baseball fields that was converted into football fields. And so now you kicking on the infield end, it's all flat. Plus, a lot of teams wouldn't put the grass down, and so you have to kick off that clay, that dirt, and going to the outfield end from second base to the center field. The field goes out, and then there's a gentle slope downhill, and I think that's for drainage. But anyway, now it's like a golf shot where you have a downhill lie. And how do you play that? You play that a little different, you know. So you have to kick that ball a little different instead of the ball being more on the inside of your left foot. You know, you got to play it back more in the middle of your body, and the same techniques apply. And you know, your shoulders should be level with the slope, and golf is the same. And that's why I want to introduce these these things that players will come across, and and so and so
What about things like they were you at the time where they put the artificial grass in? And I heard and I've read that they've removed most artificial grass from the stadiums now. So did that affect your game? And do you think that that negatively affected some players and possibly led to some injuries of some players?
yeah, Houston was the first stadium that had that dome stadium, so they couldn't plant grass in there, so they used the first artificial turf that was formed was tartan turf. Tartan turf was just It's like a ink blotter that we used in high school during our time, where the fountain pens that we use to write and dip your ink, your pen in ink well, get the ink and write. And the ink blotter was so there's no padding underneath, and this tartan turf was laid right on the concrete, so it was really hard. When I played there in 60, 69, 70, um, it was already torn up. It was a lot of seams were coming apart, and it was kind of a little wavy, a little bit, and it wasn't flat, and it was kind of a mess. And so they're always experimenting with different types of artificial turf that they can make. And that Houston was the first one with the artificial surface of tartan turf, put on cement, very hard, very slippery, and very hard on the joints, especially the knees. And also, it caused a lot of injuries. He's
And
actually
when did
falling on concrete.
they remove it from all stadiums now? Was that part of the safety push with the
Well,
new rules, or is
yes,
it still in some places?
right, with the safety push and with all the injuries that the tartan turf was causing, they engineered different ways to improve on the installation or making of artificial grass, and which really helped, because now a lot of teams now converted the stadiums or new stadiums built with domes on top, because that now you don't have a weather problem.
Of course.
Okay, and when you do have a weather problem, you're playing outdoors, you have fields that are in rough shape because of baseball. And the grass may be pretty thick, pretty tall, so when you kick, the ball sinks in the grass a little bit. It's not, it's kind of a little rough terrain. Um, and So the artificial turf came into being, domes then came into being with the improvement of artificial turf. So these were the changes that were made over the years. So now, after 1969-70, more artificial turfs came into play, and also dome stadiums were built, taken away, like up in the northeast, especially where they have really horrendous weather for playing football. Look at what happened in Kansas City with all the snow, and
Does
so
it
that
level the playing field a little bit? Because you've got one team that's used to playing in snow, and then you've got the Chargers that's used to playing in year-round great weather. So I imagine the different fields could really have affected the outcome of some great games, especially ones that were really close with two good teams playing each other, but were from different environments.
oh sure, absolutely. You go from a cold weather team like Pittsburgh, and you go to San Diego or LA, where everything is so nice. In Pittsburgh, you have the stadium built right along the three rivers, and you have those horrific winds coming off the water. Uh, and it's not a dome stadium, and even with a artificial turf, but even worse with baseball, with the grass, the field wasn't really, it's pretty much chewed up through baseball and football. And the surfaces, plus the biggest thing now compared to years ago, why kickers today are so much better, is because of the improvement of the kicking ball. The Wilson and company, all these balls that are made now for the NFL are especially made for kicking. They are to regular football, where they brush off all the pebbles and put some leather softener, massage the ball a few times, and they pump it up to maybe about 15 to 18 pounds, put it in a dryer to dry it off. And so now the ball is ballooned with no pebbles on it. And now you kick it like a rugby ball. The ball just takes off high so quick and just carries a long way. When I played, we weren't trying 55, 60-yard field goals. If you kicked a 45-yarder or 42, even 43-yarder, that was considered a long field goal because we were kicking quarterback balls that were used by the quarterbacks. And now you're playing in bad weather or it's raining and these balls get wet. Okay. And these balls now, the sweet spot, instead of being bigger, now it's condensed. It's real small. And so you really hit the ball firm and right square with the sweet spot for it to go that extra distance.
Well, it looks like there's been a lot of evolution in football in the time that you played. Was there anything that you might want to tell us? What is one of the greatest lessons you ever learned? Maybe what you learned as a player and then what you learned as a coach.
I think as a player, you learn a lot about people and where they come from, how they grew up, and everybody thinks that because you played in the NFL, you come from a rich family or you got lucky, right place, right time, and parents have or coaches have a lot of influence in pushing you onward, and other coaches uh, on the NFL or college level giving you special favors, to only certain people, and and how do you handle all that when they miss out on you, you know, and you're not included in a lot of other things going on, just to make you feel better or whatever it may be. And so you're treated just maybe a little bit differently. You have to handle rejection, and you have to handle when you get a team together like NFL or even college where there's 50, 60 people, players. We all don't get along. And so, and you know that, they know, those players know that. So it's how do you treat each other, you know, and how do you get along playing with these people? And when you have a bad day, well, what's being said to you. Hey, mister, you gotta get it going. We can't do not, we gotta get somebody else that can do the job. Just little sticks like that. Like the Steelers right now, they have that problem on the inside. So sometimes that's a wake-up call for a lot of people. Or the person that does it, he's maybe the star player of the team. He doesn't care about anybody else, win or loss or whatever. He just worried about, well, I'm not happy here in Pittsburgh, blah, blah, blah. I want to go play for Cleveland or New York. Bigger, bigger limelight. And so you start playing bad, you don't give it all you have. And that's noticeable. So grudges form. So there's a lot of things, love and hate, and when they love you, when they hate you. So you have to, how to keep arm's length away from everybody. And that's what I did, being just a kicker. Only carried one kicker.
Can you excuse me for one moment?
Sure.
Excuse me, I'm recording a podcast. Could I wait 5 minutes? Thank you. like some people came. As you guys can see, I'm sitting down at the park.
Sure.
You probably see my hair going crazy. Got kind of a bad connection, but I live in the mountains, so if I want to do a live podcast, I've got to do it here in town. So sorry about that interruption.
That's
Go ahead, Roy.
okay. That's all right. I understand.
It's hard being a star here.
I know. I mean, got a beautiful background.
Well, now did you finish? I sorry to interrupt you. I know you made some great points about being able to take rejection, sticking to it, working as a team player, understanding that everybody on the team is different and that you have to learn to work together.
Especially different cultures and where you came from. Not only that, but what school you went to.
Of course.
For example, well, in LA, the LA Rams and Chargers and 49ers, um, ownership, people that make decisions on making drafts, they always like to reach out to the local players from USC, UCLA, Stanford, those kind of schools
The big schools.
because of politics and hometown boy.
Of course. And
Attracts
sometimes it's their
attracts.
alumni, so they want to recruit the best players to the
Yes,
college they went. A lot of people are still really dedicated to their university into
right,
their 80s and 90s.
right. When I was in Houston, I overheard the owner was talking to some people and in passing. They were talking about the owner was talking about the draft, and he was saying, "You know what?" He says, talking to these people, hearing this in person, this owner said, "My dream, being owner of this franchise, is to have an all Texas team." Because there's
Did
not
he?
a big, pardon me?
Did he have a pretty much all Texas team or did that not work
No,
out?
that was no, because uh, all that is just for showing, for playing, for dreams, and
Right.
just for sake, just get reaction. And Mr. Rooney for the Steelers, one day Mel Blount and Joe Green and Joe Gilliam, a few black players went on in the locker room. Terry Bradshaw was there and Terry Hanratty and Mr. Rooney came by and said, "Hey, gentlemen," he said, "how you doing today?" We all say, "Hey, Mr. Rooney, good to see you." Blah, 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 blah. We're talking. He said, he says, "My dream," he says, "not sure. I love horses, but you know what? With football," he says, "my dream is to have an all-Irish team." I said, "Oh my goodness," I heard this down in Houston. And I just kept quiet.
Well, you
Mel
don't see
Blunt's,
a huge amount of big Irishmen. They're not a
no,
they're
no,
not a football player. You may have a little bit of Irish.
we're more, we're more into rugby and soccer.
Exactly, exactly.
And so the black ball players started laughing. They said, "Mr. Rooney," he said, "if you had an all-Irish team," he says, "you wouldn't win a game." He says, "You need us to help you." He says, "It's impossible for you to have an all-Irish team." And we just all cracked up. And for that moment, we something to laugh about. And
All right. Well, that's a funny story to end our interview on. We're getting close to the end of our time. Is there anything you wanted to tell the listeners or any wishes for the new year or just a general message out to the public?
yeah, just one thing. A lot of people have dreaming, especially kids, about dreaming of playing major league sports, no matter what it may be, football, basketball, baseball. And in the ninth grade, the first day of class, I was still in Canada before I left with my sister and brother. Teacher said, I want everybody to write down on paper what they wanted to be and why. And so I wrote down I want to be a professional athlete because I played football, uh, hockey, baseball, softball, and I think I'm pretty good in soccer and baseball. And I think I want to be a professional athlete because it's the kind of work is all sports and athletics. He says, and I like to be a professional athlete someday. So he saved mine until the last time to read in class that same day, same period. And everybody's looking at me, and I just touched down my chair like this, turned red, and kids were kind of smirking. And when he was finished, and he said, the only person in his family that's going to be a professional athlete will be his older brother, Ted.
Well, and he did become a professional athlete.
He did, and so I said, yeah. I says, he probably will. I said, but what about me? To myself. And I looked at the teacher a little bit, took a peek. He's a tall guy, about 6 foot, 6'1", kind of pear shaped. It was weird, out of shape, and I figured, what does he know about any sports, or what did he ever play? What does he know? What I, the way I feel and the way what I'm good at. He's never watched me play anything. So he is. So I just turned red and felt kind of sad, but at the same time, I stuck to my guns. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna keep on playing these sports and see what happens. So when I get older, you never know. And so any kids with dreams like that, only you know what you want, and only you know what you can do if you have the opportunity. So seek the opportunity that you dream of.
I think you ran into that man years later when you were getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, weren't you?
I did, and just happened to be at a golf tournament in my hometown, and me and Ted were playing in it. And after we got through playing, I went into the restaurant area where people playing shuffleboard or whatever. He was playing shuffleboard with some of the teachers that I knew when I was with Houston. And a couple of guys says, "Oh, I can do the same thing you do, kicking the ball." I said, "Well, you should give it a shot. I can hook you up with Pittsburgh. You kick against me." And then I walked over to the teachers and I tapped on Mr. Foster. He turned around and he saw Roy. Says, "Nice to see you. How you doing?" I says, "Mr. Foster." I began to smile. I said, "Remember that birthday class that we had? You were my homeroom teacher, and you read that what I wrote as far as the only person that would be a professional athlete would be Ted," which is true. I says, "But you said I had no chance." I says, "I made it." And I says, "You lived in my head for a long time because I thought about you all these years.
Wow.
And now I come to you just to let you know that I made it. But if it wasn't for you," I says, "you did me a great service. Otherwise, I would have had the opportunity to prove you wrong."
Wow, that's a powerful story. And what did he say? Did he laugh or he patted you on the back or what?
No, he just says, he says, and I said, "Mr. Foster," I said, I said, I was kind of laughing. I said, "I'm not here to make fun of you or something like that. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I said, I'm just a fact. but again, if it wasn't for you, I says, who knows? Because I was determined. And when you're determined, you never know what's going to happen. As
And
long
that
as
would
you,
have affected a lot of people in a negative way, and they would have crawled in a hole and never done anything again. Your teachers can be very powerful influences, especially you were a young boy, your father was just passed away, you were kind of, you know, uh, going through a difficult time too. So a lot of people would have just crawled under a rock after someone they looked up to told them that. So that's a great lesson of learning. And like you said, you have to be able to take rejection and still persevere for your dreams.
right. And, the only way to do that is to live a clean life, don't get in trouble, go to school and learn much as you can and learn about the sport, everything about the sport that you participate in. Um, you know, be be a hard worker no matter what you do and try to be the best you can in everything that you try, and achieve. And I think that's the way a lot of players I've played with in the NFL felt when they were younger, coming from poor backgrounds, where the 6, 7, 8 kids and mother doesn't work, father works, and not enough money in the house to have a good life. And because everybody thinks that since you play in the NFL or play any pro sport, that is the easy road for you all the way. You're given this opportunity. You've never had to work for anything, but it's just the opposite. And everybody playing a pro sport that come from a background like I came from will tell you what a rough ride it was. And if you persevere, stick to your dreams, good things will come.
All right. Well, thank you, Roy. It's been a great interview. I really appreciate you sharing your story. You've really given us some great insights into the new safety rules coming directly from a former player and coach. So that's very helpful to get insight. It was interesting to hear about your time with the Chargers, the Oilers, and the Steelers, and you had some great stories just about the other guys. I'm sure I know a lot of my fans are both Houston and Pittsburgh fans, so they're going to enjoy those stories. The world seems to be going crazy right now, but football is something that brings many of us together in a positive way. The game of football offers many life lessons to its fans, including examples of courage, loyalty, dedication, teamwork, and discipline. As we come to the beginning of 2025, let us embrace these principles as we head into the new year and the challenges that we face as a nation. Let us pray that although our country's team has been divided, that we'll all come together as a people to win the big game ahead.
Right. Thank you.
Roy has a Facebook page, Gerela's Gorillas, so you can go follow him over there. And over the next month, he's going to be launching his YouTube and Rumble station, and that's just going to be his name, Roy Gerela. So you can check out, he's going to have some interesting interviews. You can follow him on the football camp previews, and he'll also be giving some advice over the year to coaches. So please check out his stations if you can. Thanks again, Roy. Thank you for listening to everyone today. And this is Simone signing off for today.
Perfect.